I tell you, I'd never heard of the place. It's part of the Empire, really. A place with halflings in charge. Well, whose stupid idea was that then?
Halflings are a race of short humanoids dwelling primarily in the Moot, which is a small province in the Empire. Halflings are known for their excellent produce and cooking, but are often discriminated against by other races, particularly humans. As in, ridiculing. I reckon most other races in the Warhammer world would just eat them. But that's just a case of them being small and weak rather than any kind of discrimination. It's a common superstition / bias that all the halflings are thieves. This is amongst the other humans, of course. So I think the halflings are basically like the Welshmen of the Empire, because in the rest of the UK we kind of see Welshmen as, you know, kind of silly people that can't run properly. Run like a Welshman, of course, is a phrase, and they can't. They have intercourse with sheep, and also they're all thieves. I think it's about time I put this clip that I have up, by the way, of this audio of this guy I used to work with at UPS. He was a Welshman, and he said some pretty wacky stuff, and I have a recording of it. So if you'd like to tune into some profound racism, then please do. Don't be too mad at him though. Like, I don't think he's actually a bad person. I think he's just a bit silly. I think it's quite telling that when he referred to slavery, he said in the 50s and 60s. So yeah. So anyway, now we've really ground that point in so much that all the Welsh people listening are going to hate me. The halflings are the Welshmen of the Empire. Let's just say it once more just to grind it in. This prejudice against halflings is most notable in Stirlanders in the southern and central parts of the province. But this is not for no reason at all, because this resentment stems from the 1500-year-old decision that stole their best farmland, which is the Moot, this province that is populated almost exclusively by halflings, and the belief that all the halflings are thieves is a lot stronger there than anywhere else in the Empire. In the town of Warden, there is a tradition when celebrating a child's birthday to make a straw man the size of a halfling, stuff it with treats and candies that he stole from the children. It's part of the kind of story of the game. Then it is hung from the tree, while children blindfold each other and beat it with sticks until it breaks and gives back the candy. So it's kind of it's a piñata, but it's inciting racial violence. Or like interspecies violence. Locals deny that drunks have occasionally used a real halfling for this. Ooh. And it gets a little bit too real there. But anyway, this strange decision goes back to the failings of a weak king, of course. Ludwig II of Hohenbach, more commonly referred to as Ludwig the Fat, was an emperor during the 11th century, also known famously in his time for his grotesque appearance and gluttonous appetite, of course. He was also famous for being the emperor who extended the electoral system to 2 more electors. After a halfling chef gave him the finest meal of his lifetime, he issued an edict which separated the Moot from the province of Stirland and Aveland, giving the elder of the Moot, the essential king of the halflings, an electoral position. The counts of Stirland and Aveland were outraged with the loss of their most fertile lands, but Ludwig simply scowled at them. And now, after seeing the success of the halflings, the cult of Sigmar started giving Ludwig more and more expensive gifts, trying to sugar daddy him into giving them another vote. The head of the cult of Sigmar, the Grand Theogonist, who is essentially the Pope of the Empire, if you know what I mean, took part in a sinful display of gluttony, sitting by this Ludwig the Fat's side, filling his cup like his bitch. Eventually their ploy worked, and he did give the Grand Theogonist an elector seat as well, so that is the 2 more electors that he gave out in his lifetime. Perhaps as an act of holy punishment, the Grand Theogonist would later die the next day in his bed, by suffocation from his bloated neck fat. So yes, 2 seats given out, simply of weakness by this awful, awful king. Such is the nature of monarchy. Also, I think divine intervention is definitely possible with regards to the Theogonist suffocating at night from his voluptuous neck fat, because if we look back in the text of Sigmar's founding of his ideals when he was a young man, he wanted to found the empire on strength and honour, and the Grand Theogonist showed a huge lack of either of those things. While we're on the subject of religion, the Halflings do worship the gods of the Empire, and Sigmar in particular is venerated as one of their great protectors, although there is no record of Sigmar ever actually mentioning Halflings, let alone saving them from something. They also have their own gods, but their worship is much more casual than the devotions of humans, dwarfs, or elves. Esmeralda is the goddess of home and hearth, whom the tradition of Pie Week honours. But there are also others. Phineas, the patron of tobacco with the ever-full pouch. Josias, the farmer, who always knows what the weather will be and can coax life out of the driest dirt. And Hyacinth, the goddess of fertility and childbirth. There are others, but they are so obscure that no one knows them outside the Moot. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling very skeptical about this deity, Esmeralda. I feel like she's just made up as an excuse to have Pie Week, so that the Halflings can eat loads of pies. And I'm looking into it a little bit, and it turns out she is the most popular Halfling deity. Of course she is. She is the goddess of hearth and home. Worship of Esmeralda is free of strictures and demands for worship. Oh, really? And her only rite of note is Pie Week. Oh, really? Infamous throughout the Empire for its gluttonous excesses. Oh, really? During Pie Week, if at no other time of the year, Halflings can be said to be devout into the core of their being. I bet they are. I bet the fucking Halflings are devout in Pie Week, aren't they? The original strictures of Esmeralda: never refuse food to the hungry, never use cooking utensils for anything else, never water ale down, never eat less than 3/4 a meal a day, never do anything strenuous after a meal, never leave anything unattended while it is cooking. Now, the rule of never refuse food to the hungry might seem very charitable, but Halflings live in a very kind of sharing society anyway, of like huge extended families. They're not really putting themselves out much there, if you know what I mean. You know, I went into this feeling really tolerant, and I was feeling like I was going to really appreciate these minorities in the Empire, and really feel like they get into all the culture that they're diversifying and supplying. But I'm starting to feel quite racist. I'm starting to want to string up a halfling and use him as a piñata at this point. They're really getting on my wick. Pie Week is celebrated between the 1st and 8th days of Erntezeit. The halfling celebration is rapidly becoming a secular holiday throughout the entire empire, as everyone gets swept up in the idea of eating delicious pies. The halflings themselves do not ascribe any particular reverence to the occasion, something that has not been overlooked by the humans, who believe halflings to be nothing but worthless, gluttonous layabouts. Human towns have been including pie-eating contests, awards for the best or most unusual pies, and other festivities. Business, other than that dedicated to the making of pies or the selling of alcohol to wash it down, often grinds to a halt during Pie Week. So the halflings have been a parasite attached to the side of humanity for as long as records go. The dwarfs record that a tribe of beardless manlings we first thought to be children travelled with human tribes as they passed through the World's Edge Mountains. For some reason they didn't kill them all, and I guess it was because they were good at cooking, and that was enough to keep them alive. Also useful as scouts, piñatas. So humans outside the Moot usually see halflings as small-minded and cooks or thieves, or cooks and thieves, but this is not totally fair because it stereotypes 2 of the common halfling traits. The first is their indisputable ability to make a fine meal out of any ingredients. The second is their differing views on property, ownership and theft, and as I said, this comes from a different rearing and nurture situation from the hobbit's childhood, growing up in large extended families of siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins by way of marriage, and the like. The practice of taking what is needful, be it a pie, a few crowns, or even a piece of jewellery, is deeply embedded in the halfling character. After all, if everyone is family, why should you ask permission? Of course they'll let you borrow it. These two traits have led to a perception outside the Mootland of halflings as little more than domestic help that you have to keep an eye on. Yeah, so I can see how they would appear to be immature, squabbling children that have no concept of ownership or personal achievement if they live in these kind of conditions. This type of family also lends itself to conversational habits of the halflings. They are known as expressive to a fault, thinking nothing of discussing their aunt's nightly business with perfect strangers in complete detail. Just to pass the time, you know. They love a good chat with strangers, and they are welcomed by farmers along the roads as long as they can bring gossip, coin or lunch, or preferably all three. So about the geography and economy of the Mootland. The Moot is a land of gently rolling hills and grasslands that slopes upward gradually until the land rises in the Greenleaf Hills in the southeast, where farmers raise many famous varieties of tobacco, such as Fogmaker Red, Ava Prime Blend, and the notoriously strong Fumigator. Most of the country is open, with scattered copses of oak, beech, elm and willow along the riverbanks. The only two forests of note are the Sleepy Wood and the mysterious Altar Forest. While the province is watered in its southern half by the Ava Reach, Blue Reach and Ava rivers, sufficient rainfall waters the land to guarantee regular and good crops throughout the Moot. The Mootland is divided into three major regions, 4 if you listen to some halflings. But why would you listen to a halfling anyway? I mean, they're borderline retarded. Southwest of the river Ava, one can find the Ava March, once a prosperous barony of Avaland. According to old tales, the humans of Avamarch were forced to leave the area at the point of the spear by the Emperor's troops when Ludwig gave it to the halflings. To this day, visitors can see the ruined fortifications of old castles, their stones mostly carted off for new construction that the local halflings claimed were once human settlements. While it is true that some minor families of Avaland claim lordship over areas of the Avamarch, few take them seriously. They occasionally petition the Emperor to have their rights restored, but so far their requests have all been filed and forgotten. I mean, it was over 1,000 years ago that this happened, so I'm not surprised that they don't have much chance of getting it back now. Interesting to see how these castles have been picked apart by halflings for their bricks to be used to make their tiny little houses. Just shows you the degeneracy that happens to one's culture when they start letting in people like this. I think the biggest success story that has so far come out of the Moot since these hobbits gained some kind of independence. I don't know if you'd say independence because they're still part of the Empire, but you know what I mean. They at least have they have one of the elect accounts is the halfling elder, so I guess they have some kind of political power. But anyway, since they managed to get that through basically bribery of this fat king who was profoundly weak, this is probably the biggest success story that's ever come out of the Moot. The southeastern region, bounded by the loop of the Ava Reach to the north and the border with Avaland to the south, was formerly named the Dukie of the Fallow Hills, a title given to it by an Avalander lord of the 11th century, who could never get anything worthwhile to grow there. Disgusted, he sold the region to the halflings soon after Ludwig created the Moot, reportedly muttering, "And good riddance," at the signing. The halflings, however, knew good soil when they saw it, and more importantly, knew how to properly use it. Using seedlings from tobacco plants they loved, but which grew poorly elsewhere, They planted fields of the crop along the river and in the valleys, so much that the area is simply known as Greenleafs today, and provides a major cash crop for the Moot. The Mootland government is so anxious to increase their share of the market that they sent traders on long trips around the empire to give out free samples in the hope that happy customers will want and pay for more. So yes, in conclusion, the Halflings of the Moot, they have their place in the empire. They're the breadbasket and also make quite a lot of money for the economy in the old tobacco industry. But yeah, I don't want to mix with them though. I don't want to hang around with them. But yeah, I can see why people find them so annoying.
All the big folk think we're either cooks or thieves. It's wrong, I tell you. Don't we have the same rights as imperial citizens? Aren't we halflings normal people? Whole people?
I wear my coat, my shirt, my top, my socks. I wear my shoes, my gloves, my hat, my glasses. You know that I passed this mic to the left, but it's right. Is it either? I don't know, that ain't right. I'll take over the beatbox in a few beats, and you know that I'll beat shot. Take some shots with your mic, see? Pricey, let's go.
MC that I see nightly, because I be the man sitting here chilling. I be billing while the bars are skilling. Then I come round and I will ruin any good nigga come and talk that chewing. Then I'll be hitting my shoe in the pussy, and I get that every time I do D. Do it. I've been slewing since y'all was a little kid. Little kid spitting that licorice, sucking on the limerick, and then I say hit a this. Yes. I'll be hitting this every time that I come through. It's ridiculous. It's like I'm fucking asthmatic, but I ain't no spastic. Come with the mad shit.